Greetings, ladies and laddies, and welcome back to the realms of this cursed, rat-infested city. In today's episode, we'll be taking care of the 6 swarms of corpse rats that come with the Cursed City box set. Even though they might look all the same at first glance, you will notice that there are actually 3 different kinds of swarms, quite similar to the mysterious objects we painted a few days ago. The goal of this video is to show a few different approaches to paint these swarms, so you can cherry pick whatever you fancy for your own miniatures at home. Don't underestimate these vermin, as they seem very easy and straightforward to paint, but with 15 to 20 entities per swarm, this project can definitely take a lot longer than you might expect. So, without further ado, let's get going! Because of the tight formations of these minis, we have to twist the brush in quite awkward angles to reach every rat. Foreseeing this with my enormous big brain in the beginning of this series, I recommended to leave the swarms detachable for this exact reason. Now we can break up the formation and have easy access to the single rats themselves, be it still on the base or picking them up between our fingers. Once the base coats are done, we can quickly reattach them and voila! Every rat is painted. You may skip this step with the loose formations and the wide angles, but to ease the stress on you and your brush, I would really recommend disassembling them when painting the tight ones. Anyway, for the paint job itself, we use 2 different kinds of brown and distribute them evenly among the single entities that make up the swarm, to make the rats look a little bit less uniform. When doing this, we want to avoid painting several rats next to one another in the same color, and rather go for a real patchwork quilt of colors. Alternatively to the brown, we can use different kinds of grey for a darker look. Either way, you can be really quick with this step, as the rats are not necessarily known for being very tidy creatures, and there's not much else to look out for at this point anyway. If you're really feeling up for it and want as much variety as possible, you can combine all 4 paints to create really unique and colorful rat swarms. As I went along with these rats, I got the idea of one of them maybe being a bright white albino rat, for which I chose the fat blood rat in the middle of the colorful swarm. Okay, cool! The bodies are now all finished and we can move on to the next really important features: the long tails. For this, we use a rosy, flashy skin color to really make them stand out in these clusters of bodies. This step can take quite a bit of time, as the sheer mass of these things on every base is a real challenge to paint. After every single one of these little worms is finally painted, the swarms really start to come together quite nicely. So much so that I disassembled the models again and took care of the bases like we usually do. When I came to the dry brushing though, I noticed that I got a little overexcited and forgot to paint the visible bones on these undead rats. Ah well, nothing unfixable. Once the bases are finished and the swarms reassembled, we can take a dark beige and pick out all of the visible bones, which are mostly skulls, but also some ribs here and there. Also, don't forget to paint the skull embedded in the base. And that's basically it. Now we just need to heavily wash them in a brown or black wash. I chose to use a red tinted wash for the tails, but that's absolutely no necessity. To shade the albino red, I used Apothecary White from Citadel, as it doesn't leave as heavy stains as a black wash would do, but that's again a personal preference. As we're waiting for the wash to dry, we can quickly take care of the trims, and we are done with the speed paint. But before we move on to the showcase, I just want to mention that I picked one swarm out and painted it while having a timer running. I really like doing this, as it is, funnily enough, way more relaxed, because I don't have to worry as much about filming and can just go ham on the painting. After roughly half an hour of hands-on painting time, the swarm is completely done and table ready. Using this as our reference point, the swarms take around 3 hours to paint, and I personally think that's quite fair. We used a lot of different paints and had to take care of a huge amount of entities per base, so I think we were still quite fast actually. Surely we could shave some time off by not using different colors, which for models like these one is indeed a valid strategy, but I think the end result is absolutely worth the little bit of extra effort. Speaking of, I will now, as always, use the next few minutes to showcase some extra steps on how we can further upgrade these rats. As per usual, the first thing we want to do is to put down some more highlights. This gives the minis more depth and also combats the glossy finish many washes leave after drying. For this, we can use the same paint as we used for the base, as this first layer will have been dulled down quite a bit after the wash. We apply the paint, carefully picking out the raised, illuminated parts and leave the shadows in the recesses. I know this step is quite tedious and the result is not very clear, but trust me, we need to do this to lay the foundation for the steps to follow. For the skulls, I actually went a bit too bright, but that's alright. Still, you might want to look out for the contrast on your own minis at home. Alright. After the bodies are done, we can do the same with the tails, moving the brush in quick streaks to emphasize their many bulges. For the smaller tails you don't have to pay that much attention and basically paint frei nach Schnauze as we say in Germany. But for the larger tails, especially on the fat blood rats, you might want to slow down a bit and try to really catch the casted bulges. Cool! Now the rats really start to look interesting. The next step is very easy and can be done in between a minute and the rest of your flippin' life, as you might come across the thought of just ending it all. Because we will take a brush with a very fine tip and accordingly brighter colors to paint very fine streaks onto the already highlighted parts. This will make the impression of tufts of hair and gives the mini the well-needed texture. All that aside, how damn does this step take long? Of course, we don't have to be very neat here, but still, even if you're quite quick with it, it will take some time to get this done. But when you're finally finished, the rats will look absolutely amazing. Now we just gotta finish them up by painting their eyes in a bright red, and I also used a red wash to pick out the wounds of the albino raccoon. Whew, that last part was quite intense. To be perfectly honest, I felt kinda on the text for most of this project, so I thought about ways to make this paint job really interesting, and this is how I came up with the idea of painting the fur. And yeah, if life goes easy, we can very quickly find a way to make it hard for ourselves. All that whining aside, I think the models look great. We definitely made their intricate cast justice, and made sure that these swarms will surely draw attention on the city's streets. If you're following me along on this project with your own miniatures at home, you will have 28 of the 60 cursed city models finished by now. Ooh, almost halfway through. As always, I have a full guide with all the exact paints named down in the description of the video. And if you have any questions, maybe a couple of suggestions, please be my guest and share them in the comment section. In the next video of our speed painting series, we will take care of the rats with wings, also known as bats. And if you would like to see their paint job, as well as the other upcoming Cursed City miniatures, feel free to hit the subscribe button. One last thing. When I started this whole painting channel this year, I set myself the goal of reaching 100 subs by the end of May, as well as 1,000 views on a single video. I had very little hope as to actually achieving it, and in fact, we didn't. We already surpassed it more than double that amount! What? I'm absolutely blown away by the amount of people that are interested in the content of this channel. It's very uplifting and a great motivation for me, as I'm actually aiming to do YouTube as my full-time job as a freelance creator. I mean, sure, I still have a very long way ahead of me, but reaching this milestone makes me hope that I might actually make it. Thank you guys so much for all your support and appreciation, and I hope very much to see you again in my next video. Until then, take care.